Our parents used to stay, they don't hardly stay home, they got none to stay home in the village for, so we go out and trap. My dad will trap for fall season and beaver season. They had 2 seasons. In the springtime, we have to move to Chaletna, the spring camp. We live on ducks and trouts and all kinds of fresh meat and stuff until fish start coming here. Then we come down and go to our fish camps. We never used to stay in the village and put up our fish for the winter. And after fishing season, we go up the lake and go up to Kijik and make camps there and stay all fall up there. Women's picking berries and men folks getting meat and putting up fall fish, that fish that's already spawned out.
For the freezer, good naztunikin, back angaltunikin.
They used to preserve the fish many ways. Now there are freezers to keep fish fresh or cooked. We also have dried fish. They used to preserve half-dry fish in the ground. They would fix it so that it didn't get rotten.
Southwest of Anchorage, Alaska, on the Cook Inlet, is the Lake Clark National Park and Preserve. Here, where the Aleutian and Alaska mountain ranges meet, lakes and wild rivers running with fish fill the rugged valleys. Boreal spruce forests and rolling tundra teeming with wildlife blanket the earth. And here, for many generations, have lived the Dena'ina Athabascan Indians of Alaska. Their understanding of the seasonal cycle of nature and their culture have survived to modern times. Even today, most of their food comes from hunting and fishing. Salmon is still a major food source and is smoked and dried each summer to eat later in the year. In the old days, the Dena'ina also used a method of preservation that kept salmon for longer periods of time and also fermented it into a flavorful treat. This was the Dena'ina fish cache. The historical record is not clear, but many elders remember that fish caches created a delicacy that was very enjoyable. The caches also preserved food for emergencies. Today, only a few elders remember how their parents built these fish caches or storage pits, and the National Park Service wanted to document the process before it was lost. Dena'ina elders of the Lake Clark region allowed us to videotape them building a bark-lined fish pit in the traditional manner. Building a fish storage pit meant knowing and using the seasons of the year. The first step had to be taken in the spring, when the sap flowed freely in the trees. At that time, the Dena'ina peeled and stored spruce and birch bark, which would line the pits dug later in the summer. First, a sapling or tree limb was sharpened to help peel the bark away from the tree trunk. To keep tree sap from running over their hands, the Dena'ina picked and tied grass around the peeler.
That's good, the dry wood's gonna be. Try the cargo.
This spruce tree will die and be used later for firewood or building material. A thinner layer of bark will be peeled from the birch tree, so it will live. This young spruce bark, peeled in the spring of the year, is flexible, so the Dena'ina roll it, clean it, and fold it together, then take it back to camp.
Dat should echt niet, you see, Andrew? Dat should echt niet.
Oh, so I can look at it.
They store the bark to use later, to line and cover the fish pit or cache. To keep the bark moist and prevent it from drying out and cracking, the Dena'ina keep it out of the sunlight and dry air, burying it under layers of grass and moss. A few months later, the sockeye salmon begin their run or migration, and now it is time for the next step. In the old days, the Dena'ina made fish traps out of willow saplings, but today they use nets and boats. The salmon are kept in a crib of cold lake water until they are cleaned. This way they stay fresh, and blowflies can't spoil the meat. Using a sharp knife, or this traditional vashla, the Dena'ina gut and fillet the salmon.
Like this. They don't put it into one way. Just like, then you could put that leaves. And so I never used that before. Should be this time. While the fish are being cleaned, the next step is underway, digging the storage pit. In a well-drained area above the flood line and not too far from the water, the Dena'ina remove the sod and lay it aside, then continue to dig a hole about as deep as the spruce bark is wide. These wooden pegs will hold the ends of the bark together in a barrel shape. The birch bark is used for the bottom and top.
Tiene que costa.
Let's say that's all lost. That this. No, you can.
Dit geht sich.
Renne ik het zo dat dan ran.
The spruce bark lines the sides of the pit.
Ja.
Andrew, can you get what's old?
No, you can get one of the car to get it covered.
No, net shit really.
Oh.
Kida kan
Got none?
niet doen je shop.
You got nothing to say?
Ja. Die kan die.
No, that's it.
Ja, ik wil. Hartstikke hadden lachen. There.
All right.
This lining is held in place by the wooden pegs that have been carved. The barrel-shaped container that is formed doesn't help preserve the salmon, but it keeps the dirt and water out.
Ja.
Before filling the pit with salmon, the next step is gathering fireweed leaves. The leaves will separate the layers of fish and help improve the flavor. They probably also help in the fermentation process that keeps the salmon edible.
Nou, check asla.
Dat beschränken op.
So I didn't go into or you to contact what's from Akha. Kana kakit na rat.
Sol kem gaat ik dan zet.
You see, can it touch it? Don't put too much in there. Okay. Go. You're going to roll it for a while, that low way down?
Like this, Ruth?
Yeah. Push it way down.
That's where they keep.
Ik dacht, ik nog zitten laten.
Dicht het niet gewoon.
There. That's really salted down now.
The Dena'ina place sticks across the top to hold the birch bark, which makes a cover for the fish pit. Then the sod is replaced and tamped down. In the old days, a fish pit might be dug up in a few months to provide a change in the Dena'ina diet, or it might be left for 1 or 2 years. Sometimes as long as 3 to 6 years could pass before the pit was opened and the salmon were eaten. Early the next spring, we went back to dig up the fish. It was a celebration, this recreation of the Dena'ina's history and culture. Whatever the result, everyone had learned from the process. As soon as the sod was lifted, we knew that our fish hadn't preserved well. It smelled bad and the meat wasn't firm. But still, our failure wasn't the end. It just proved the skill and knowledge needed to build a fish cache the right way. We know these caches were an important part of the Dena'ina culture from the many pit remains that surround abandoned village sites. And although the method seems simple, it demonstrates the genius of a people who learn to live in harmony with their environment.
My dad dug up a fish pit that was 6 years old. There were fish head and eggs. The heads were as firm as when they put them in. the eggs too. Boy, it was good. And that's the way they ate it.
Ayeha tiso sto cheso chavachayeha ayeha tiso sto cheso aho ho 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 che ki aho ho ho ki no on nitik oh, netia, ayea, tisa, sta, cheso. Oh, netia, ayea, tisa, sta, cheso. Ki, Nondalton Dena'ina, ayea, tisa, sta, cheso. Nondalton, ayea, tisa, sta, cheso. Aho, ho, 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 ki, aho, ho, ho, ki, ayea, tisa, sta, cheso. Chavachayeha, ayea, tisa, sta, cheso. Aho, ho, 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 ki, aho, ho, ho, ki, no, on, nitik. Oh, netia, ayea, tisa, sta, cheso. Oh, netia, ayea, tisa, sta, cheso. Aho, ho, ho, ki, Nondalton Dena'ina, ayea, tisa, sta, cheso. Nondalton, ayea, tisa, sta, cheso. Aho, ho, ho, ki, aho, ho, ho, ki, ayea, tisa, sta, cheso. Chavachayeha, ayea, tisa, sta, cheso. Aho, ho, 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 ki,